Good to have you with us. You're watching The Urban Debate with me, Avni Raja. 4 cases of the new Omicron variant have now been detected in India. 2 in Karnataka, 1 in Gujarat, and now the latest case being reported from Maharashtra. Now, given what happened during the second wave and what we are learning about the Omicron variant, there are a lot of concerns. Obviously, none of us want to see a repeat of the second wave. But what's important to know at this stage is that there is no need to panic, but there is a need to be aware, to understand as much as possible about the new variant and to take precautions. The good news is we are in a much better position than we were during the second wave, and one main reason for that is because vaccination is, of course, in full swing and a huge part of the population has been vaccinated. And also what we know so far about the Omicron variant is that the cases that have come to light are mild symptoms. But at the same time, there are just about 300 cases world over at this point. The variant has come to light only recently. And so there is a lot more that needs to be studied, that needs to be deciphered over the next few weeks. So obviously that is something that one needs to keep in mind. But what we are going to do today is go across to our experts to understand what we know about the Omicron variant at this point in time. We have our numbers flashing for you on your screen, so you can call us, you can pose your questions directly to our expert panel who is with us today. So everything that you want to know about the Omicron variant, everything that is possible to answer, because remember, there is still a lot that is unknown. That cannot be reiterated enough. But whatever is known right now, all of that, we'll try and break it down for you on the show tonight. Now, joining me is Dr. Rajib Dasgupta, Scientific Advisor, IMA, Dr. Ishwar Gilada, Infectious Diseases Expert, and Dr. Rajib Dasgupta, Chairperson, Center of Social Medicine and Community Health, JNU, and member of the National COVID Task Force. Thank you all of you so much for joining us on this special show today. Now, let me in fact start here with Dr. Jaydevan and try and understand. We're now looking at about 4 odd cases from India. The latest one is coming from Maharashtra. This seems to be something that we are possibly going to see increase in the number of cases. How long before you believe that all of the cases that are perhaps, still not yet come to the surface would actually come to the fore?
There was no doubt at any point that this variant had already circulated around the world by the time it was discovered. So yes, it is increasingly uncertain where this variant in fact originated. It could well have originated in any country in the world and got picked up by diligent researchers in South Africa. So the next few weeks will give us that information. I know there's plenty of information flying around, and it's important that we sit back, take a few deep breaths, and just wait for credible information to appear. There is no doubt that there will be more cases identified in our country as well as elsewhere. The question is, how are these clusters behaving? The preliminary information we have is that the people who are tested at least are having mild symptoms, and that there is not a huge amount of contacts that are turning positive. But this is very preliminary information. We must be guarded when we talk about the implications of preliminary information. So let's wait it out and see how things happen. But at the same time, we must not forget the pandemic is very much a behavioral disease more than it is a disease of mutations. We often blame the virus and its mutations, but we fail to control our own behavior. We go for parties and we go for indoor gatherings. We keep our masks down. And I think it's important to remind ourselves that the pandemic has not gone away anywhere and that these measures have to be continued.
Yes, absolutely. Extremely important point that I believe can't be highlighted enough. But Dr. Dasgupta, your own perspective here, we are seeing the 4th case here coming in from Maharashtra, and obviously all the state governments are doing their best to try and contain the situation at this point in time.
Well, I think despite the best efforts, which both certainly all state governments and the central government is putting together, as much as in the rest of the world, this will be very, very difficult to contain. One, for the simple reason that as evidence emerges from South Africa, this is at least 3 times more potent in terms of immune escape. In other words, the relative comfort that we had of high seropositivity after the Delta tsunami, if I may, that is not going to be of much use now. But on the plus side, as we know, again, so far, it's relatively mild. What we also know, or again from South Africa, is that an increasing number of children are falling ill, but that's probably explained by the very high transmissibility or secondary attack rate, which means if any one person gets it, almost the entire family would get the infection, and the previous exposure to infection wouldn't possibly protect many. So everything taken together, the number of cases are going to be extremely high, and if they remain mild, then actually much less would be detected because they wouldn't even be seeking treatment for the simple reason that much of it is almost like a common cough and cold. So everything taken together, it would spread pretty fast, pretty far and wide, but could get detected less potentially. And this has a bearing on how we should move forward, but that can wait for a later discussion.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, Dr. Gilada, if I can come to you here just to take forward the point that Dr. Dasgupta was just mentioning, what would be key also going forward is that the good news here, of course, is that the cases so far are all mild. But how much of that is a function of vaccines doing their job, and how much of it is a function of the actual variant and the nature of this particular variant? So that would be a key metric to establish going forward.
Early to say that it is going in a milder way because it is just a 10 or 15 days time. We need to yet establish. Yes, good thing that out of 400 cases globally, barring South Africa, not a single have died. So death rate is almost nil, and severe illness is nil. But we cannot say now. Look at Delta, because I would like to be always reminded of Delta when we talk about any other variant. It was just 1% presence in January 2021. It became 99% by July in 6 months. So 99% cases of all Indian COVID patients were Delta. By August, it was in 100 countries. By now, it is 98 to 99% of all over the world is only Delta, Delta, Delta. So if 1% can become 99% in India, one country can go to 153 countries. I think you can imagine what this virus can do. Similarly, now it has been said already by Rajiv and Rajiv that it is 3 times more infectious than Delta and 5.2 times more infectious than the Alpha variant or original variant, or original virus, Wuhan virus. So if this is such an infectious virus, then even if a small number of people getting sick, the real number becomes very big because you are having every 10 days you are multiplying 5 times more. So it's not 5 times, it's 5 times. Every 10 days, 5 times more. So in 1 month, you will have 5 times into 5 times into 5 times, about 100 times. So that way, we have to be very careful. What is more important for all of us, as Rajiv very nicely said, and Rajiv also said, that we must have a COVID-appropriate behavior, which is very much slack. I just traveled 3 times, twice to Karnataka and once to Madhya Pradesh. There's nothing there. No COVID-appropriate behavior. When I wear mask, I'm like a odd man out. Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister 10 days before said that when you land in Madhya Pradesh, you don't have to have a COVID-appropriate behavior. What is the need for a Chief Minister to say like that? I think we should have a proper guarded action. Government of India should take anybody who may be Chief Minister, maybe any big officer, take them at task. You cannot behave like this. Because you are political leader, some are social leader, some are film leader, people will follow them. India is a hero worshipping country. So our heroes cannot say like this. Therefore, and secondly, vaccination is at lakhs in last 1 month. Rather than having 1 crore a day, we are having 40 to 50 lakh a day. So whatever mild hesitancy is there or relative hesitancy is there, that should go away. People should use Omicron to increase vaccination. Whatever doses are lying, 30 crore doses are lying with the states. So reduce the gap between 2 Covishield doses. I don't know why they are taking 2 or 3 months time. Initially it was fine because there was a shortage of vaccine. But now there is no shortage of vaccine. And lastly, rush the vaccine to Africa where vaccination is very poor. And that's the reason newer and newer mutant will come. So nobody else will look after Africa. America has destroyed 16 crore vaccines, but they have not given to Africa. And Europe is sitting on a stockpiling of the vaccine, They are not giving to Africa. So only India can do that. There's a saying in Hindi, "Ghayal ki gati, ghayal jane aur na jane koi." So India can better understand Africa. Let us save Africa also now.
All right, fair enough, Dr. Gilada. Dr. Jaidevan, coming back to you here, like we've been talking about so far, the symptoms are mild, the cases that have come to light are mild, but the fact that the transmissibility is significantly higher as far as the Omicron variant is concerned, the bigger concern would then be that if it starts spreading faster, even if the cases are mild, it would then give a chance for more mutations to happen, and that is a bigger concern.
Yes, that's a good point. In fact, for our viewers, I think they must understand that a more transmissible variant is more dangerous to the country than a more lethal variant. Because if a virus gets 10 times more transmissible, theoretically, it can kill more people than a virus that doesn't increase its transmissibility but can kill more people. It is basic math. So so that is an important fact. So we must not take the forecast about transmissibility lightly at all, which means that we must not let our guard down. And you mentioned about mutation. Now, mutations, again, for our viewers, are basically spelling mistakes that occur in the genetic code, which is based on an alphabet in a particular series of alphabets that are placed in a single line. Now, these spelling mistakes that appear periodically are called mutations. Some of them matter, some of them make a change in the virus, some don't. Some cancel each other as well. But back to your question, mutations are more likely to happen in a particular subset of individuals in whom this virus can live for longer than in an otherwise healthy person. Say the virus infects a healthy person, typically it does not live alive, or it doesn't stay quote unquote alive for more than 10 or 14 days. But in some individuals who have lower immune systems or compromised immune systems from an infection or cancer or other disease process or a transplant recipient or taking certain medications, the virus gets to live for months in this patient and studies the immune system thoroughly and enjoys the hospitality of the host and makes all these changes. And that's been well documented. Now, there is a subset of people in India as well who are immunosuppressed. I think we must, in fact, even think about even giving them a third dose just to make sure that they don't get a chance to harbor the virus. So that is one area I would single out in the vaccination process.
Yes, absolutely. All right, Dr. Dasgupta, just a couple of points as far as the vaccination drives are concerned and what we possibly can and should do going forward at this point in time, given the worry with regard to this variant. There has been talk about booster doses. There has been, talk about maybe reducing the window, as the gap between the Covishield doses as well. Is that something that can and should be fast-tracked at this point in time?
The change in the schedule of Covishield is concerned, that's for the NTAGI to consider. But as far as the current priority goes, it's to complete the second dosage first of those who have already received it. In fact, as of day before yesterday, nearly 15,000 plus frontline health workers actually took their second dose on the 321st day after vaccination. Now, that's the kind of vaccine hesitancy or complacency we are actually seeing among frontline workers, and a bit less among the health workers, but even a substantial number of health workers are still taking their second dose. Remember, it started on 16 January when the schedule was 4 weeks. In other words, we need a lot more to understand of what is causing this complacency and some bit of hesitancy, and design appropriate communication measures. So in short, the priority is to complete 2 doses. The government is certainly considering an additional dose for immunocompromised and other high-risk categories, as well as prioritizing those vulnerable children who need it most, because as we are again witnessing from at the African countries, the number of admissions of children in hospital with Omicron has gone up, though there are not many complicated cases or deaths. But that's in a sense to be anticipated in India too, because much of the adult population has got at least 1 dose. So that's something we need to anticipate also.
Okay, fair enough. Dr. Gilada, in terms of, the reinfection aspect, the breakthrough infections and how effective vaccines are going to be as far as this particular variant is concerned, what would be any concerns that you might have, as an infectious disease expert when we are looking at this brand new variant that has come to the fore and the current plethora of vaccines that we have?
It has been well established currently that Omicron escapes the vaccination. So particularly either the natural infection immunity or the vaccination immunity, it escapes that. But we are creating ourselves this kind of gap. If the gap is reduced to 4 to 6 weeks, then that kind of gap, because one dose gives you 33%, 35% protection, but two doses gives you 70% protection. So I think if you reduce the gap. Secondly, what is happening in the country is you can have vaccination in mandir, masjid, dharamshala, on road, in a car, in a parking lot, everywhere, but not in doctor's clinic, not in nursing homes. I think this is ridiculous thing that people go to doctors, people go to ANC clinic and antenatal clinic, they go to blood banks. You should have vaccination all these places. So if a person can take a vaccine on street, there is no risk for that. How is that doctor gives a vaccine, there is a risk? So I think in the beginning they thought that emergency situation should be handled, therefore given all big hospitals, all district hospitals, or all five-star hospitals, but not now. Currently, there are a lot of vaccines are going to expire with the private setup. And when you say private setup, that doesn't mean that private setup is including private doctors and nursing homes, because there is no vaccine available with the doctors. So I think private setup should use doctors and nursing homes. Government of India should also have a vaccine Maitri program in India itself, by which they can exchange the near expiry vaccine with the private sector with the longer expiry with the government sector. Government sector can use the vaccine because they are doing a regular vaccination program. So I think we should have innovation. If we don't do that, then we keep on saying that 25 crore people are not taken second dose. You created this kind of vaccine hesitancy. So there is absolute hesitancy. It is very difficult to change. But there is a relative hesitancy, which is a larger population, that is very easy to change.
Right. All right, Dr. Jayadevan, we know right now that the symptoms are mild, clinically mild symptoms have been established so far in the cases we've seen, but it is highly transmissible. Going forward, in terms of what more needs to be studied, what more needs to be deciphered, what are the 3 or 4 most important things that we need to know at the earliest to sort of determine what kind of an impact this will have?
Dr. Gilada said, we need to find out to what extent this vaccine will, this variant will escape the present day vaccines. Vaccines protect at 2 levels, that is the ability of the virus to infect the person and the ability of the virus to cause damage or severe disease to the person. Now, the second category, it's unlikely to be affected because it is carried out by a separate department in the immune system. The first category, though, that is the ability of the virus to infect, it could well be compromised by the present set of impressive set of mutations. And that is the speculation worldwide, even though we do not have definite proof. But when a lot of scientists who know a lot about this think in the same direction, we can take that as a reasonable evidence that this variant can escape vaccine protection. But that should not alarm our community in the sense that it's not going to kill people in large numbers unless we let it spread. So that's the first thing. The second is, as we talked earlier, how fast is it actually spreading? And that information will come in over the next several weeks. And that information has to be put through a rigorous peer review process, because what is immediately apparent before our eyes might not be true. That's important. And the third is, we know that no matter what variant we face of this particular virus, when it affects people in the younger age groups, it almost invariably causes milder disease. So we must not be fooled by a few reports of mild disease. What we don't have is the profile of this disease in older age segments, specifically over the age of 60.
Hello?
Yes, Ms. Vidyasagar can hear you. Please go ahead.
Hello?
Mr. Vidyasagar, if my voice is reaching you, you can ask your question.
Yeah, man. Hello?
All right, I think we seem to be having a problem with that line there. We'll just try and reconnect. But that, of course, is some important points that have been raised until now. Let's also go across to Sudesh from Bengaluru, who's with us. Hi, Sudesh. Thanks for calling in. Go ahead. What's your question?
Yeah, my name is Dr. Sudesh and I'm calling from Mangalore, not Bangalore.
All right.
Yeah, now my question is, over 30 countries, we have more than 500 to 600 cases of Omicron.
Yes.
What I am more interested in is, how many of them have got 2 doses of vaccination and have got infected? If they have got infected, is it because of the vaccine or is it a completely different virus which we are dealing with, which will need a newer kind of vaccine?
Okay. All right. Dr. Dasgupta, would you like to take that question?
A quick answer to that is, while I can't give you the exact number of how many of those people were vaccinated with 2 doses, but what's quite clear is that even with 2 doses, one is certainly susceptible to this variant. In fact, there is also at least one case in the US who had a male patient who had not only received 2 doses, but who had also received a booster. So that's not going to guarantee prevention of this infection. But at the same time, the COVID vaccines are not all or none games. Their role is to minimize serious disease and death, and that seems to be still holding. So maybe we are not really asking the right question, but what your second part is absolutely right, whether the current vaccines will protect against this. That essentially entails 2 parts. One, the laboratory research component which scientists and vaccinologists are working on. The second would be, depending on that, how soon the manufacturers will be able to alter it. And in fact, some manufacturers are already hopeful of that. But
right.
Third, it would also require very quick licensing protocols to be nimble-footed and not get this the changed vaccine into a full trial.
Right. All right. Dr. Sudesh, hope that answers your question. But on that note, I'm afraid we're completely out of time. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us and taking us through all that we need to know right now as far as the Omicron variant is concerned. We, of course, on Mirror Now will continue to break down all the information that's coming in so that we can all be as prepared as possible and take as many precautions as possible, because none of us want to see a repeat of the second wave. Thank you so much for watching.